Hey everybody, I'm Zach Rohde and I'm here with Mark Benet, and this is going to be an extremely important video. So if you're watching this, I really recommend you just watch it start to finish. You're going to get so much out of it, and you're really going to learn so much about what is going wrong in relationships and in your love life, and how to fix it, right? And how to fix it in a really short period of time. So what we're going to be talking about today is an overview of polarity, and what polarity really is, what it isn't, why most people teaching it are not, they're teaching a very inverted, skewed version of polarity.
Why they're
And
wrong.
what's that?
It said why they're wrong.
Yeah, why they're wrong and why we're right. And and so especially if even if you do have a good understanding of polarity, and you're implementing certain things in your love life, this is going to be helpful. But especially if you don't really know much about it, or if you've been learning from a lot of sources that are not really giving that much good information, well, it's going to help reprogram you and you're going to learn a lot of better things. So what we're going to talk about first is problems, right? Because what polarity is the ultimate solution for solving your relationship problems. You could read 100 books about love languages and about needs and attachment styles and all kinds of stuff, and you'll get little pieces, puzzle pieces, and put them together, and 5 or 10 years later your relationship might be 10% better. But how about you just learn about what polarity is and make your relationship 1,000% better in the next few months or the next year, right? That's really possible because polarity is what is the root cause, or depolarized relationships, I should say. Depolarized people is the root cause of all this dysfunction that's going on in your love life. So let's talk about that dysfunction. Mark, start us off. What are the really big problems in people's love lives? Let's start with relationships.
All right. So there's this thing called inverted polarity, which I also call pseudo-polarity. And it's basically the man is in the feminine and the woman is in the masculine. And she ends up really unhappy and pretty much directing his ass around subtly. And as the perversion grows, pretty overtly. So then the man gets very disgruntled, very irritated, quite emasculated, and he's simmering inside. And he's kind of putting a lid on his discontent. When the man is like that, the relationship is very depolarized. When the woman is like that, the relationship is very depolarized, which means there isn't that magical energy and chemistry and devotion between them. So I'd say that is the first problem. That is really the ultimate arch problem. And all the other problems come from that.
Yeah, so okay, so that's the overarching problem, and then let's look at the symptoms. So one symptom, conflicts, right? In a polarized relationship, when we're talking about polarized relationships, we're talking about a man who is leading, right? He's the one that's in charge. He's the one that making decisions, expectations, all that stuff. We're going to get into that later. And a woman is letting go of control. She's submitting to a man's leadership, devoted leadership, right? Where he's considering her and her needs and her feelings and everything. And it's like a salsa dance, right? Polarized salsa dance, man leads, woman follows. Both people have an amazing dance, an amazing time. But when that dance is not happening, think about a salsa dance. What's happening? Man's leading, woman's also leading. It's a struggle, right? It's a fight. And it looks like a complete disaster. So one of the big symptoms of this lack of polarity, where the woman is not just letting go of control, or the man is not really in control and not leading, is conflict, right? Conflict shouldn't be happening in a healthy relationship ever. There's so much of that bullshit advice or common wisdom that, conflict and stuff is normal. No, it's not. That's dysfunction. It should never be happening. So conflict, lack of sex life, right? It is not normal for couples to be having sex like once or twice a month, or even really once or twice a week, right? That happens because of a lack of polarity, a lack of attraction. When a man and woman are not polarized, there is very little attraction and they don't want to have sex with each other, or it's just a buildup of resentment, and so there's a lack of connection for actually having sex. What else do we have? What are the other really big symptoms?
Roommates. They become roommates. Because things have been depolarized, you're basically friend zoning each other. And you're like, well, we're going to stick with this. We hope it gets better. We've got no real game plan for it getting better. And, well, it doesn't get any better. So that depolarization becomes normalized, and there's just a plateau of friend zone, and you become roommates. And it's not that you're good, harmonious roommates either, because you still want there to be a relationship there. You got the memory of it. You have the desire for it, but it's not. So that's just a mediocrity that's been, elongated through the rest of your days.
And so there's going to be a lot of unmet needs here, right? Like sex is often an unmet need, but also like a lack of real deep connection is often an unmet need for women. Not feeling safe, not feeling cherished, not feeling valued and cared for and seen, right? Feeling seen and heard is a really big one. And for men, not feeling respected, right? Walking around feeling irritated and emasculated all the time.
Yeah.
And just not feeling like a man, right? Not feeling received, not feeling like he's in charge, that feeling powerless, feeling weak, right? These are needs that I'm talking about the feelings, but it's because of needs that are going unmet. And this is most relationships. Most relationships have these unmet needs that are happening all the time. And usually both partners care to some extent and want to fix things. It's just they don't know how to actually do it. And so they continue to get unmet, resentment builds up, continues to get often increasingly depolarized. Couples end up getting comfortable in their depolarization, and it just continues to be a mess.
That's right. And I'll just add a little refinement there. One need is that the woman has is to feel energetically penetrated by her man. And if he is not able to step into that leadership role and into his power and into his masculine instinct and claim his woman, then she doesn't receive that gift of his energetic penetration. And that is depolarizing. And it can also create resentment in her. And she can basically be saying, where is my man? Where is the man here? And then he's like, why is she such a grumpy ass? Beep, and stuff like that. Because he actually doesn't even know how to step into his dominance and polarize the relationship. She doesn't know how to step into her vulnerability and submit to his leadership and polarize from her direction. So that real energetic penetration that we all understand regarding bedroom sex doesn't happen outside of the bedroom. And then if it's not happening outside of the bedroom, when the man is penetrating his woman with his leadership and she's submitting and receiving that gift, then that will affect the bedroom eventually. The bedroom affects the out of the bedroom affects the bedroom, and then eventually it all flatlines.
Yeah. And so in practical terms, like if we're looking, fly on the wall, inside scoop on what this dynamic looks like, typically it is a woman who's doing a lot of the organizing, a lot of the planning, she's in the giving role. She's doing a lot, initiating. She is, maybe the one that's giving gifts or giving her time, she's giving, right? And usually that's because of a self-worth issue as well, right? And it's exhausting. It's going to be really exhausting. And the man typically feeling, is increasingly becoming lazier, right? Because the more that a woman gives to a man, the less he's going to want to give to her, the less he's going to be interested in the relationship, even if the stuff that she's giving him is really nice, right? 10 blowjobs a day, or a bunch of money, or whatever it is, right? The actual thing can be nice, but energetically he is feeling less and less like a man in the dynamic. And so he's going to increasingly be checking out. And then in as far as the communication goes, it's the same thing where the woman is doing a lot of leading. She's directing. It doesn't have to be obvious. It can also be really subtle. It can be very manipulative. She can be leading with her feelings. She can be leading with hinting. She can be leading with her drama, with her, having a temper tantrum. She can be leading, but energetically, she's leading the relationship, and the man is kind of just going along with it, not knowing how to respond, checking out, withdrawing, or getting defensive back.
Or even cheating on her as well, thinking about other women, getting addicted to porn, all these things. And it's because ultimately he's not stepping into his leadership role, which is the ultimate responsibility, should he choose that responsibility. And that is also his gift. But once he steps into it, then all sorts of responsibilities flow out from that initial choice to be responsible as the leader. If she's in the lead, he doesn't have that primary responsibility. He's depolarized because he has no real function anymore. And his instincts have to basically go offline or go inert. They're buried. He bypasses them. All the symptomology that comes from being a man, but not being masculine.
Well, that's actually a good segue into, let's talk about some consequences of what's going to happen in these depolarized dynamics, because it is so normalized in our society now. These consequences, like this is what happens when you get married, is you're probably going to get divorced, right? That's one of them. Where what's the divorce rate? Something like 50%. The divorce rate should basically be zero, right? In a polarized society, healthy polarized society, nobody's getting divorced, right? Men and women are together forever and want to be together forever because they have no reason to split apart. All of their needs are being met. And so that's a really big consequence for both men and women, for someone, and not to mention the children, for a variety of different reasons. But it's ultimately because the man's needs aren't getting met, or the woman's needs aren't getting met, or typically both needs aren't getting met. And they try to fix things, doesn't get fixed, and then it's like, okay, well, I give up here. And it's usually because the woman is trying to fix things, right? She's trying to make things better. She's trying to repair the relationship, rebuild the connection, all that kind of stuff. Problem is that that's just going to make a man want to check out more, right? That's because she's leading. The reason that he's disconnected is because she's leading. So trying to fix it with more leading is not going to fix the problem.
She is occupying his role. That's his role, and she's occupied it. And it's because men don't know how to occupy that role these days, which is what we teach them.
Yes, we do. Very well, by the way. But yeah, so divorce, breakups, checking out, watching porn. That's actually a really common thing, like you mentioned. Cheating. Yeah, and typically the porn's with men, sometimes with women, but it's much more so of a problem with men. Why are men watching porn? I mean, of course, porn addiction, blah, 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 trauma. But the main reason is because a man's not getting his needs met in the relationship, right? He's craving that feminine energy. He's craving that dominance, like him feeling dominant, right? And so he's not getting it from the relationship. So where's he going to get it from? From this very superficial, visual, sexual representation of what he really wants.
Yeah, he has no function in the relationship because his leadership has no place. And so he finds all sorts of substitutes for that basic reality that he's got no role. And that's one of the famous mantras of angry feminists, that I don't need a man. Well, then that just happens in the relationship too. What's the man doing there? And I'm not, getting on feminists per se. I'm just saying the angry ones. It's like a man needs to have a role. He needs to have a function. He needs to have a responsibility to be active, present, dynamic in the relationship. But they both need to understand that his role is to lead the relationship. And it's not her role. And it's not to be shared, because that's not going to work either. Here, I'll lead today. I'll lead tomorrow. No, it doesn't work that way. It needs one leader, because it's the one leader's inner vision for the relationship, which is the masculine man, that takes it where he needs to go. You know, it can't be going to California on Monday and going to Massachusetts on Tuesday. It's like this.
Yeah. And you know, all of these symptoms, right? I'm just going to use an analogy of plants, right? Like when a plant isn't getting all the sun and rain and good soil and everything that it needs, what happens? Well, it adapts in the best way it possibly can to get its needs met. And that might mean, you know, shriveling up, or, not growing as many seeds or fruits or whatever as it could. And so it's not thriving, right? It's not thriving, but it's trying to stay alive. And that's exactly what, if you look at relationships and how men and women try to stay functioning and stay in the relationship as best as they can, what ends up happening, like television, video games, drugs, porn, all of that kind of stuff, cheating, are just men and women trying to get their needs met because they're not being met in the relationship. Why are they not being met in the relationship? Because we've been brainwashed for decades, and even before then there was big issues too, but especially for the last few decades, to believe that essentially a depolarized relationship is a healthy relationship. And even before that, men weren't really taught to lead in this dominant devotional way for their woman. There's a lot of crap that's gone on, prior to when I was alive. And same for women, right? Like women have often, kind of, I think, always been, to one extent or another, taught to, be in a masculine role in certain ways, but in just this really soft, anticipating a man's every need kind of thing, right? If we think about 1950s, anticipating his slippers, anticipating everything without actually being led to do it. And so she's going to be in her masculine, and a man is, it's kind of like this artificial polarity. Like it kind of looks polarized, but there's actually some issues with it.
Yeah, polarity can go deeper. If you phase out that anticipation that the woman's doing in the 1950s, for example, of being the good wife, as it were, then she stops the mothering, stops the, gifting, stops all the maneuvering for whatever reasons. The polarity is going to go deeper.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's going to be a lot more fun, a lot more fulfilling for both man and woman. So this even plays out a lot when for men and women who are single, right? Like we've been talking about relationships a lot throughout this this video, but it's the same thing in dating, meeting each other, all that kind of stuff. Now, there's a lot more built-in polarity into the whole dating scene, but even still, men and women are still quite depolarized. And, as an example, I'll give an example, right? Men are still often really timid. If you're a really dominant man, every woman is, like, basically 99% of women are going to be attracted to you and really like you when you go out and you date a woman, you meet her, you get her number, whatever, right? If you're having trouble getting women attracted to you, or getting the right women, the really high quality women that you want attracted to you as a man, it's because you're not polarized, right? You're more timid, you're holding back, you're not leading with that dominant energy. And as a woman, it's the same kind of thing, right? Like women holding back, not really communicating their feelings, right? Remaining silent a lot of the time, or communicating in a more masculine way, not being that radiant feminine that really pulls in a man and makes him feel really attracted and want to keep seeing her. Some of the other symptoms for women, typically it's like men get friend zoned all the time, and then women get fuck zoned, right? So for men, it's like they can't even get a woman to like them romantically and want them to kiss them and sleep with them and all that. And for women, typically it's men will want to have sex with them, but they won't want to actually claim them, right? It's like, you're my girlfriend, I want to be with just you, and I want you to just be with me. And now we're in an exclusive relationship, so that women will often just get used for sex, and it will turn into this non-exclusive, leaky, non-container of a relationship. And why is that for women? Well, it's again a lack of polarity, right? It's a lack of being fully connected to your heart, connected to your self-worth, being willing to walk away from a lack of devotion. But you're not going to get devotion unless you're expressing your heart vulnerably in the first place, right from the start. So all of these symptoms, all of them, are because of a lack of polarity. If you are a radiant, feminine, vulnerable, submissive woman, basically every man is going, like the vast majority of men are going to not just be inspired to step up in to a large degree, right? They'll still have their fears and everything, but they'll really want to step up because they'll feel so safe to lead. It'll feel so good to lead. They'll feel so received when they lead. Because they feel more comfortable, it's just easier to do it. You'll get a lot more men that are actually really stepping up and leading, taking care of your heart, and wanting to claim your heart, right? Wanting to be with you, not just for sex, but to actually have a relationship. Because why wouldn't a man want that when a woman is, fully in her radiance, just her heart's fully open, but you can feel her worth at the same time, right? You can really feel like, not only am I feeling her worth through her heart, but a man can also feel whether he can just get away with like taking advantage of this versus like, if I am not being, if I'm not being the best devotional leader I can, or if I don't claim her, if I don't take this seriously, she's going to be gone, right? A man can sense that, and he's going to be acting accordingly. Now, an honorable man, he's not going to be using a woman regardless, but most men have not stepped into that level of integrity.
Yeah, and it really has to do with her vulnerability, because when she's really vulnerable and available energetically and her heart is unguarded, that activates his instinct to penetrate and to claim, right? If she's very guarded and masculinized, his instinct to penetrate and claim doesn't get activated. He may be instinct to penetrate if she's really smoking hot, but not to claim because she's too masculinized, right? So what it is that the woman who understands this and is open-hearted and vulnerable will experience polarity with a man whose masculine instinct is online, because he's going to be penetrating that receptivity, that energetic vulnerability and open-heartedness. He is programmed to do that. And this is what we're talking about with respect to polarity. We're talking about instinctual programming. And so you have to be tremendously embodied to actually experience polarity at this level. And the degree to which you are embodied is the degree to which you're going to experience polarity as a man or a woman. And this is something that we also help students with in the academy. We get them really embodied, and not ideas of embodiment that you were taught in the university. We get you into your instincts, into that kind of primitive state. Not in a primitive state like you're a barbarian, but we get men in touch with their instinct and women really in touch with their heart and their feelings, because that's where the magic of the polarity happens. And when a man really is in touch with his instinct and he's anchored, grounded, and rooted, he feels that power. He feels that self-possession. He feels that penetrative agency. He feels like claiming that woman. And when she can feel the man claiming her, holy shit, that actually increases the polarity too. It gets, oh, wow, we're back. We're here. We're in our bodies. We're in our instinct. We're in our heart. We're in our feelings. We are incarnated from the neck down. And that is a great accomplishment for people in the 21st century.
And that's another good segue. So on that note, just briefly talking about the Academy before we get into this, just so everyone knows what we're talking about. The Academy is our 6-month program for men and women. And we go, like what we're talking about here, we go like 100 times deeper. But the main focus of the Academy is not just to give you a whole bunch of information to fill up your head with and a bunch more concepts. It's all great stuff, but it's not the focus. We help men and women become embodied, right? And that means men fully stepping up into their dominance and leading everything, and it's the energy of it, right? It's that dominant feeling of energy, of where he's centered, where he's strong, where he's penetrative. And for a woman, it's about letting go of control, opening up her heart, being fully vulnerable, and just being able to radiate whatever is in her heart. And it feels so beautiful, and it's soft, right? It's soft and receptive, and a man can feel that. And it also, when a woman is really in her worth, he can feel just how unbelievably valuable that is, and he wants to be around that energy all the time. And so we help you. What's that?
Irresistibly feminine, as one man said.
Yeah. And so we actually help men and women shift this by practical application, right? By helping them move through their fears. Women are doing live streams, opening up, getting vulnerable, doing role plays where they're practicing feminine communication and letting go of control. And men are learning how to lead, right? Learn to lead on actual calls with women clients, doing role plays with them, practicing their leadership, practicing leading them into their heart, practicing boundaries, setting expectations, and practicing getting into and staying in that dominant penetrative energy. And so on that note, that I wanted to bring that up, since you brought it up anyway, because what polarity is and what we teach is not what the vast majority of polarity teachers are teaching, right? They're teaching something sort of similar, and it sounds similar on the surface, but most of polarity teachings are quite inverted. Some a little bit inverted, some very inverted, but I don't really even want to associate myself with the polarity thing in general, because so much of it is off, so much of it is inverted, and it's actually leading people astray and has led people astray for a very long time. So let's briefly go into, let's just lay it all on the table, right? Put all our cards down. What a polarized dynamic, a polarized relationship looks like, what a man is doing and what a woman is doing. Why don't you start us off, Mark, and then we'll go from there.
Well, the key feature.
I want to give you the honors.
Yeah, the key feature of a polarized relationship is devotion. So there's feminine devotion and masculine devotion. The feminine devotion is expressed primarily through her heart, and that's what a masculine man devotes to through his form of masculine devotion, which is service, which is leadership. Okay, so you're going to see in a polarized relationship devotion. You're going to see the man leading. You're going to see the woman submitting to that devotional leadership. It's not just submitting to some jerk. It's submitting to a man who's in his dominance, who leads with devotion. So he's leading as an act of service to her. Okay? But it's still his inner vision. His inner vision is not complete and integrated without her feedback, without her feelings, without her needs. Okay? He has claimed her. All right? That means that she is his woman. And she knows that. And she can say, this is my man, but it's not, she doesn't quite say it the same way he says it. And this is a relationship where there isn't as much or hardly any conflict. There can be bumpy patches because we're dealing with a lot of conditioning. So this is another aspect that we deal with in the academy. A man's route to dominance is through his conditioning, through his emasculation. A woman's route to her vulnerable, radiant heart is through her own conditioning, through her own masculinization. It's not necessarily easy, but if you do it, the rewards are just inestimable.
So the way that I like to describe it is, well, there's a few ways that I like to describe it. One is giving the dancing analogy. Another is, going for a drive together where the man is the one that's driving and the woman is, going along for the ride. And when a woman is really in her worth and actually has faith in a man's leadership, she's not doing any backseat driving or front seat driving. You know, she is just trusting him to actually lead, to drive, right? And where is the man driving to? Well, he's driving to, you know, Polarityville, to make both the man and the woman, both him and his woman, as well off as possible, right? He's driving for them, for both of them. And if the woman needs something along the way, well, you know, she can just ask, like, ask permission for something. You know, let him know that she's having a problem, whatever it is, so that, you know, expressing her feelings about something, so that the man can basically lead better and go to a McDonald's or somewhere that's not shitty, maybe. But yeah, go to a restaurant, get something to eat. And so this dynamic is always playing out, this polarized dynamic where the man is leading. What's that look like in practical terms? Well, the man is doing all the initiating in the relationship. He's setting all the plans. He is setting the expectations for the relationship. And by the way, this isn't just a relationship. This should be starting right when a man and woman meet each other, and not necessarily giving her a 10-page list of expectations and boundaries, but he's setting the container, he's setting the dynamic, right? And that's going to come through in his energy and in his communication. So yeah, he's setting all the boundaries. He is, you know, and as he's doing all of that, right, he's considering his woman. Like, what does my woman need? What makes her happy? And you know, when she actually starts leading, right, or resisting him, or blaming him, or doing something that's disrespectful, he leads her to stop doing that. And why does he do that? Because he cares about her, and he cares about himself. He respects himself enough to not let that happen. And he also cares about her and knows that if he lets her get away with that, that's not going to serve her, right? What's going to serve her is leading her into her feminine. And so this looks really, well, we often get told that our work is very rigid and very, I can't even remember the other adjective. Yeah, dogmatic. But it's not, right? Because when a man and woman are really tapped into their instincts, there is no other way. Our bodies are actually always telling us what is natural, right? This is a man and woman's natural state. For a man to be leading in this way, and for a woman to be letting go of control and just expressing what's going on inside of her, and being led, right? Submitting to, again, devoted leadership. It's devoted. It's not abusive leadership. It's not inconsiderate leadership. It's devoted leadership. And that's only going to be possible when a woman is truly being vulnerable, expressing her feelings. This is a really big part of polarity, is that a woman, you can't get away with not being vulnerable, right? If you are not willing to communicate your feelings right from the beginning, then you're not polarized, right? And you can give any excuse in the world that, oh, men are not safe to share my feelings. There's just so much. It's bullshit. I'm just gonna call it out. It's bullshit. On a first date, when a man, you know, leads in some way, and the woman, and it makes the woman feel anxious or uncomfortable, right? Is she not going to be vulnerable and express that? No, of course she should, right? Why would she hold that back? That's what she's feeling. That's how a man is going to know that, like, oh, you know, I need to adjust my leadership. Because if she just sets a boundary, or if she just, you know, is like, no, we're not, like, let's do this instead, right? She's disrespecting his leadership. It's not going to feel good for him. He's not going to feel received. He's not going to feel respected. And he's going to just feel that masculine energy from her. It's going to turn him off, right? And so absolutely, a woman needs to learn how to be vulnerable right from the beginning, and learn to create her own sense of safety in that vulnerability, right? If you're going to wait for a man to make you like this perfect dominant Mark Benet man to come along and sweep you off your feet and make you feel safe to be vulnerable, well, guess what? He's never coming, because that Mark Benet man is looking for a woman who's already able to be vulnerable, right? Who's already in her radiance. And if you're not able to do that, if you're relying on that external circumstance for you to be yourself, okay, you're gonna be attracting something worse. Here's like the flip side, right? It's like a man who's like, oh, you know what? I totally want to lead, but I need a woman to make me feel safe to lead first. Right? It needs to be totally accepting.
He says, I'm gonna be feminine until she comes in the picture. Gonna be totally emasculated, and right when this feminine woman walks into my life, I'm gonna be dominant.
Yeah.
He has no idea how to be dominant. He's been emasculated and feminine his whole life. It's the same with women who say, you know what? I am not going to submit to a dominant man until he comes into my life. You don't even know how to submit. You're going to be like working through all of this conditioning and all of this armor around your heart. You don't know how to do it. You've been living your whole life in your masculine energy, protecting yourself. Dominant man comes in, you're probably going to attack him too. Because he's a threat. The reason he's a threat is because he's really masculine. And you're like, oh my God, I'm masculine. Ah! And what's going to happen is you're going to feel that ambivalence. You're going to be drawn to him and terrified of him at the same time.
Yeah. And I've certainly met quite a few women like that. I've had to block quite a few too. And yeah, so I really want women to understand that. It's just so important that, you know, that think about that man, and he was like a feminized, emasculated bitch. Are you going to be interested in dating him, so that he can be polarized and feel totally safe to lead? No, you're going to be like, I'm going to go find that dominant man instead, right? Well, it's the exact same thing for a man when a woman is making these excuses for not being vulnerable, for not letting go of control. It's like they're not going to be interested in you. And so it's important to really, you know what this is about? It's about taking 100% responsibility for yourself and what you are co-creating, okay? Because we get into this really disempowered state where, when I say we, I just mean collectively we as human beings, where we believe that, you know, something external has to change, and then our lives will somehow be better, right? You know, men are just not, you know, they're not dominant. They don't know how to lead, and you know, it's all that blame, that externalized blame. Well, maybe it's just you're pushing away all the men that do know how to lead, and the men that want to lead, they're just not interested in leading you. So you're left with the feminine men. And it's the same for men, right? Oh, like all these women are, you know, they're just all masculinized and bitchy, and, you know, they can't let go of control, and they're all entitled and just want my money. It's not my experience at all. I've dated tons of women. It's not my experience, like even close to that. Not in relationships and not dating. Women have been very feminine, very respectful, very not trying to control, with only a few exceptions. Why? Because I knew how to lead, because I took responsibility for my life and what I was co-creating, because I used to be that emasculated bitch, right? And I was somewhat of an emasculated bitch in my marriage too, and not nearly to the same extent as I was long time ago when I was single. But it was the same thing where it's like, oh, I created this woman who's irritated with me all the time and starting to nag me, and it's really getting on my nerves. Okay, I can either take full responsibility and be like, oh, the reason that is happening, the reason that she's like that, the reason that women are masculinized around me that I'm dating, is because I am not solid in myself. I am not dominant. I am not leading. I am not devotional, right? And then actually go ahead to change it, right? Take all the steps to change it and step into that. Or it can be like, oh, you know what? My wife is such a bitch. All these women, they're so bitchy, right?
Yeah.
They're so masculinized. That's not going to change anything. It is so disempowering. You can change everything, whether you're a man or a woman. You can change everything that you are co-creating with your partner if you're in a relationship or if you are single. But you've got to get out of your negative unhealthy, immature mindset, believing that you are basically anything that is not the belief that I can completely change everything, everything that I'm co-creating by polarizing myself. You're lacking responsibility.
Yeah. And there's a 99.999% chance, if you're a woman and you're saying, where are all the men, that you're a masculinized woman.
Yeah.
Because if you are really, really in your feminine, in your radiance, in your heart, you won't be seeing a lot of masculinity everywhere. Now, they may not be dominant men as we teach them in the academy, but your feminine energy activates masculine energy around you, right? If you're in your masculine energy, well, you will also be activating the feminine energy of emasculated males, because they're drawn to that masculine energy because it's what they need. They're drawn to that dissociated energy that they're not living. They find it in you, so they go for you. And you find the feminine energy that you're not living inside of them. So they've got your heart and you've got their power. Wow. What a great exchange. And then that's just the recipe for a dysfunctional inverted polarity right there.
Yep. Beautiful. Yeah. So what do you want? I already know what you want. If you're a sane human being, if you're a man, you know, and you're still single, you want to be able to attract and be able to claim, have women wanting to be claimed, you know, really high quality women that are receptive to your leadership, that want you to date them, and that want to be claimed by you. If you're in a relationship as a man, you want a woman who is, you know, well, I guess there's going to be some guys that aren't fully here yet because they're not fully tapped into their instinct. But I encourage you for this to be your desire, for this to be your goal. You know, having a woman that is fully submissive to you, letting go of all control, is also fully in her self-worth. So she's not just going to be a doormat submitting to you like just because. You know, she's submitting to you because she respects you and because you're devoting to her. So it's a high self-worth woman, a high value woman. And yeah, she's letting go of control. She's just expressing herself vulnerably to you. She's permissive to you. She doesn't try to lead you, you know, give you all these solutions, and she's not initiating. She's not trying to make up for her self-worth deficiencies by trying to, you know, give to you and get in your space. And you can just feel that radiance from her all the time, and it feels so good to serve her. It feels so good to penetrate her physically and like sexually and energetically. And you know, you can just have that dance with her, right, all the time. There is no irritation, there is no fighting, there is none of that issues that like 99% of people, 99% of men face. There is zero chance of divorce. There is zero chance of a woman cheating on you. Why would she when you are a fully dominant man? You can feel totally 100% secure in that. And then as a woman, you know, what do you want? You want a man who actually wants to claim you, who doesn't want to just use you for sex, a high quality dominant man where you can just let go of control and all these dates, you know, everything's taken care of. And once he claims you, he keeps leading. That was one of the mistakes I made in my marriage. I led up until that, and then the leading started to slow down, and yeah, rest is history. But yeah, so he continues leading every step of the way, right? He's taking care of things. He's providing, he's protecting, not just physically, but, you know, he's protecting your heart from others, from himself. And he's providing, not just physically, not just financially, but energetically, filling you with love, filling you with, you know, with care, and teaching you, coaching you, helping you shift more and more into your feminine so that you can increasingly let go of control, so that you can heal all of your trauma, so that you can just be, right, instead of doing all the time, instead of draining yourself, right? Having that kind of strong man who is your rock, your lighthouse, as Mark Binet likes to say.
The oak.
Yeah, the oak tree. Yeah, and so that is all possible but only if you really take this stuff seriously. And by seriously, I'm not talking about just learning a whole bunch of information, right? You could spend forever, watching these videos, reading people's posts, building your own theories about polarity, or, adding to the theory that you have. That's not polarizing. That's just, what do you call that, Mark? You have a good term for it.
What, when they're all up in their head?
Yeah.
I got a lot of words for it, but it's like dissociated intellectualism, spiritual theory town. What else? Is there a particular term you were thinking about?
I can't remember what it was, but you got some good ones. I love coming to you for all your terminology. Yeah. So this is something that you can have. This is something that you can create. As a man, you can become this dominant man that women just love respecting, effortlessly respecting, can easily let go of control, feel safe around you, want to be around you. And, ideally we're talking about one woman, but also just women in general. Not, I'm not saying like have a harem. I'm talking about, women in society that just respect you, right? Because they can just feel that they want to be around you. And for a woman, it's the same thing, right? You can be that radiant woman who just lets go of control, and just men just want to open doors for you, right? Men just want to serve you. Men just want to pump your gas. And especially your man, he wants to take care of you, he wants to provide and protect for you. You can have that, but you've got to go beyond just learning all these theories. You got to take this seriously. This is not easy. This is really the most difficult work that a man or woman could do. And I say difficult, not in the sense that like you're gonna, it's gonna be, I don't know, what's the most painful thing you can imagine doing? Like being a farmer, like 16 hours a day. I'm not talking about that kind of difficulty. I'm talking about difficulty as in it's scary, right? A woman needs to learn how to be fully vulnerable and create her own safety around being vulnerable, right? Expressing her feelings all the time. That is terrifying. Letting go of all control for a woman is terrifying. For a man, learning to step up and lead and make judgments, fully speak his truth, always risking rejection, essentially, not being received by his woman or by women. That can be really terrifying, right? It was certainly terrifying for me learning how to do this. But you can do it, but only if you're willing to be courageous enough, only if you're actually committed to this. It can be so easy to get stuck in excuses and continue to procrastinate and not do this work. But if you do it, right, if you actually have you learn the tools to do this, and a lot of it comes through communication, right? You can achieve this goal, and you can do it pretty quickly. This is not something that needs to take a decade, right? All these men and women that have talked about like, oh, I've been doing this healing work for 2 decades, 3 decades. And like, like women say that, and like, they're still totally masculinized. Even if like they say they've been doing all this feminine work, they're totally masculinized. And these women, or sorry, these slip of the tongue, men, feminine men doing all of this healing work, right? And they're just emasculated little blobs after 10, 20 years because they're not doing the work to actually be masculine. This doesn't need to take decades. This needs to take, a matter of, for most people, like if you were really serious about this, a couple of years, and you're like day and night difference, where you are getting a completely different reality in your love life. And but when I say a couple of years, I'm talking about like, you are so dominant as a man, or so radiant as a woman. You can shift not all of this, but so much of this and what you are creating within a matter of months.
Yeah, we've seen it like in 6 months in the academy, how men can totally get into their dominance with women, with their partner. It's like the way they started and the way they ended is unbelievable. And the first guy who did graduate, we just was like, "You're so incredible. We want you to stay on board and be a coach," because he was that amazing. He got into
Yeah.
his dominance over the course of 6 months. It was phenomenal.
Yeah. So we're talking about, so a matter of months, right? Not, so let's talk about months, not years here. Men who were in totally depolarized relationships or situations, who are not leading anything, and so we're talking about actual results with clients. So there's no reason that this can't be you either. Not really having sex, lots of drama, lots of fights, not much connection, there's not much respect. All of that gets turned around in a matter of months, right? Where, having sex all the time, having a really healthy polarized relationship where you're being respected by your woman, where she's really working on letting go of control, where she is actually expressing all her feelings instead of blaming you for stuff all the time, right? And as a woman, the stuff that we've seen where women finally get in touch with their heart. Like, we're talking about women who've been doing this healing work, like a lot of women, for years and years and years. And it's like, I don't even know what they were doing prior to this. Like, I don't know what program they're in, but it's not what they really need, right? Because it's not the practical transformation that men and women need, right? So what we've seen is women who fully get into their heart, right? They're so vulnerable. It's so beautiful. The number of times that, I've cried or like tried to hold back tears because these women are just so innocent and beautiful, and they're just sharing on live streams and on role plays, and they're just in their pain, and it's amazing, right? It's the most beautiful thing that a man could see and witness, and especially if you let her into it. We see women that get into that and making massive shifts in their love life and their relationships, where their men are really starting to step up and wanting to take care of them, right? Where these fights are actually ending. That is something that you can have, right? That's something that you can have. It is going to be almost impossible if you don't take this work seriously enough and don't get real support, though, right? If you just try to, read a few books, figure it out all on your own, try to figure it out all by trial and error, let your ego essentially run the show, because, procrastination and self-sabotage and just excuses. This is the most difficult work you can do. But if you get the support for it, you can do it very quickly and be living a totally different reality within a few months if you take it seriously enough.
Absolutely. See, what we're doing is we're getting people to stop running. Women are running from their hearts because they're terrified of their vulnerability. Men are running from their power because they're terrified of responsibility. So we get you to stop running that way and then run back to what you've been fleeing from. Women have to run toward their hearts to be feminine, and men have to run toward their power to be masculine. And that's the power to be responsible, the power to lead. And when men and women run toward their natural disposition, then they find each other as well. They find themselves, and then they find each other. They're home in themselves so they can be home with the other. But if you're running from your heart as a woman, you'll never find a man. You can find a great man could be in your life and you're still running from your heart. So you're running from him. You're running from your power and your responsibility and your leadership as a man. You're not going to find a woman that way. Even if you're in a relationship with her, you're not in a relationship with her because you're not at home in yourself and you're not at home with her. So this is what we get you to do. We get you to run home instead of run away from home.
And how do we get you to run home? So our main focus, this is not like most programs where it's like you learn a whole bunch of stuff in videos and you do some journaling and you have a good cry and then maybe you do a few one-on-ones or group calls or whatever. No, this is probably the most intensive program out there, where it is all practical application, right? Of course we got all the videos that you need. Of course we got all that information. But what this is about for men and women is the biggest thing that it's about is coming together, engaging together. Male clients actually, well, first of all, women that are, you'll do role plays with coaches, right? with where, you know, a woman, you'll be you, and the coach will be a man, or the coach will be a woman, and if you're a man, you'll be you, and you will role play back and forth how to communicate, right? It's communication that helps you shift into this energy, helps you you know, step into your dominance as a man, or radiance and vulnerability as a woman, where you will actually break all of these old patterns, right? As a woman, you'll let go of these patterns of trying to control things, and you'll feel it, you'll see it in yourself. It'll feel uncomfortable to let it go, to really open up, to be vulnerable. But if you move through that discomfort over and over and over again, you'll become increasingly vulnerable. You'll become increasingly radiant. You'll become increasingly feminine, right? And as a man, same thing. It's scary, right? But you do it over and over again. You'll notice all the ways you soften yourself and weaken yourself, but you'll continue to shift your communication and step more into your dominance and feel your power, right? And then you'll start doing it with each other. Men and women clients actually on calls together, doing role plays together. The men leading the entire calls, right? Basically becoming a coach in so many different ways. And women learning to actually trust them and let go and be vulnerable and just express themselves in their feminine energy. It's the most beautiful thing ever. It's scary, right? But that's why the shifts happen so fast, because we are helping you move you through all of your fears by reconnecting women to their hearts, reconnecting men to their cocks, and doing it in a way where it is fully interactive with each other. And that is why the results are so rapid. You're not going to get rapid results by doing a couple, you know, one-on-one calls or whatever. You're going to do it from actual implementation, moving through your fears. If you think there's any way to become this dominant man or radiant woman without moving through all your fears, you know, I'm sorry, you're crazy. You're not serious about this work. You make the shift by moving through all the fears, and we have created all of that opportunity for you to move through all of those fears, and then in a safe, loving container, right? Because you can imagine trying doing this in a relationship and just, you know, your woman goes nuts and starts yelling at you when you try to step into your dominance, or as a woman, like you try to be vulnerable, but you know, you don't do it right, and then your man gets really reactive, and then you're more closed than ever. No, you're going to learn it in a safe container where you'll get the support that you need, and like the instruction that you need to actually make these shifts, right? To catch yourself when you're not doing this properly, so you can feel this energy. And by the end of it, it's like, no, you are a vulnerable, beautiful, feminine woman. You are a you know, strong, dominant, devotional man, because you've stepped into your power. That's what you can have. And I want everybody to take this seriously, because if you're really being serious, really think about it. 6 months from now, totally different person. You're living in a totally different reality, having the love life that you actually want and deserve. Do you want that? Or do you want to continue struggling? Do you want to continue suffering, you know, being in pain, not getting what you want, you know, making excuses, continuing to procrastinate, not getting your needs met, you know, not feeling like a man is feeling like a man if you're a man, and not feeling like a woman if you're a woman? How long do you want to continue suffering like that? You can literally solve this in a matter of months, but only if you take this seriously. Only if you're willing to let go of the excuses, stop procrastinating, and actually, you know, step into a real solution where you're going to get amazing support from people who know how to do this, who actually care about giving you these incredible results, who've seen it happen time and time again. Do you care about yourself enough to make that happen? If you don't believe this is possible for you, no, I'm going to call that out. You're full of shit. Of course it's possible for you. You can do anything that you want, but only if you're willing to move through that fear. You can do anything you want. You are no different than anyone else who has achieved these results. The only difference is you haven't made that first step to make it happen. That first step is reaching out to me. So I'm Zach Rohde. Send me a message on Facebook. Send me a private message. Tell me you watched this video. tell me that you want to change your life and polarize yourself, and I will talk to you then.